All right. As we continue practical faith, we'll talk about the world system chapter. And so, in this chapter, I make the argument that the world system of economics is the love of money. And so, consider the economy can be defined as a system in which resources are created, distributed, and consumed. Now, in a biblical narrative, then Yahweh's design the system is based on abundance of things that reproduce perpetually. Okay, and so food, water, even shelter exists that way because again, you just build it, you just improve it, you continue to use it. As long as you maintain it, there's no reason to replace it. And so we all know the saying money is the root of all evil, but the problem is not the money itself, but the love of it. And so in the Bible, we're talking about the worship of created things. What is it? A thing that didn't exist until somebody made it. You know what I'm saying? And now this thing somehow is an object to be praised. All right. Now this is not only included to manufacture things like whether it be jewelry or clothing, stuff like that. It's particularly troubling because most of this stuff just ends up in the trash. At some point, it loses its utility. Everything I got on is stuff that's only important to me. Whether it's the colors in this hat, is this jewelry, the Tricolor Quest shirt. I'm the only one that has utility for it. There's no one else that does. There's people that will take it if I give it to them, but they ain't gonna pay for it. Even a limited edition release like this, the utility is very. And so we, in a system in where we're working for stuff we just essentially throw away that we don't need, that don't reproduce. The fact that we're doing those things are a bit abnormal. Okay. Now nature is different. Even if a tree withers, its roots can feed new life. But the way we work in our system, we kind of may actually more like a disease tree in which it poisons the entire ground it's attached to where nothing grows. Okay, and we see this idea in swamps and desolate places where everything is rotting. All right. And so, think about again, how does nature do it? Again, balance, cooperation, it's mutual flourishing going on. Animals live to eat, reproduce, they take shelter. Rest, eat, sleep, reproduce, shelter, simple stuff. But man, who's supposed to be more complex and higher forms of animals, build complex systems like markets or military industrial complexes, monopolies, all of these economy, all built around something intangible, money. These pieces of paper that represent the value of shiny rocks, whom for arbitrary reasons determine the movement of all things. Who controls the amount of shiny gold rocks? That in and of itself is ludicrous. And so, and our system doesn't bring harmony. It doesn't produce the results that nature produces. And in nature, all these systems, there's balance to the ecosystem. Anytime there's any imbalance within the ecosystem, we know that there's a problem and it's detrimental. You know, likewise, man doesn't take from this example. We Our systems produce war, oppression, poverty, and hierarchies that again work against mankind as a whole. So think about it. When we love money, it's not just the possessions that we love. It corrupts even our values. All right. Where we'll work in pursuit of things that have no use or no purpose, will waste our lives on meaningless pursuits, and then sacrifice our families and ourselves in the process. You know, it's like a form of worship with the economy, where we're looking for the things, economic solutions to bring us wholeness in our practical lives. Instead of looking at, Elohim and just focus on doing the things we should do, is treating each other the way we're supposed to, we're looking at economic solutions for our problems. But these economic solutions usually require us to exploit somebody, whether it's a customer or the family that we have to neglect while we go out into the streets to make this money. Okay? And so we had to ask ourselves, what do we need to do? All right. Now, why is this important? Because we're living in this under this system, and we act like it's the only way it has to be. Okay? All right, think about the government. There's an economic theory that holds that our modern system of government are actually tools for controlling resources on behalf of an oligarchy. That our government, like our president and things of that nature, are just managers of these resources on the behalf of others. Okay? And so when we hear words in the news like stakeholders and government interests and America's interests, we're not talking about individual citizens, the citizens as a whole. We're talking about individuals within America, but not the American people. Again, I mean, the recent bombings that we've just had in Iran, the simple question is, what do the American public, what's the ROI for us, the people? What could a country the size, can probably be the size, as small as the size of New Jersey, country we ain't seen on no map, only in reference to this is a place that we bomb, place we're not going to visit or tourists at. What could they possibly done that we'll be blowing them up? It doesn't seem reasonable. The disparity between their capabilities and ours, and our lives being so different, there's really no reason for us to even be interacting with each other. From a practical standpoint, no reason for our citizens to interact. But yet, it's in America's best interest to bomb the country. Which Americans? Definitely not any that I know. And so, think about the freedom and protections that the law provides to a certain class of people. They don't provide it to us. You know what I'm saying? And so, even the founding fathers knew what they were doing when they established our government system. Resources always flow up, but they don't go back down. And that's just the nature of the things. And so, if you think about it, think about most modern inventions, like the roads. You would think roads were primarily for moving people and connecting communities, but they were more for trade. And we know this from our history, looking for trade routes, trade here, trade there. These trade paths become roads for commercial use first. The people benefit as a added, but commerce, money, is always the first reason. Like interstate commerce, those things are always developed and protected first. Romans roads helped our Roman war machine and their system as well. Okay, and so we're not talking about something that's done for altruistic sake. If that was the case, more public transportation would be the obvious solution, or increased capacity on neighborhood roads and streets, or things like that that benefit the whole people. Um, but those things take a priority people over the movement of goods or commerce, which is why they don't exist. It's unfortunate because basic math could generally solve all of these issues. It's a common fact that any highway project is usually too small by the time it's completion. And so 10, 15 years of road work only to be in just the same amount of congestion. It's like, oh, the roads is congested from the road work. Oh, we'll get better once the roads are finished. The roads are finished, they're still just as congested. Why? Because in the amount of time for the road to get completed, people have been moving here and the city's been growing, and the roads were never built for the capacity that the city would become, but based on what the city is currently. That's why it's always insignificant. But you can't believe that people are just that incompetent as city managers. Maybe this is the design all along, to make an excuse for the perpetuation of spending. Okay? And so most technologies, from the internet to Velcro, all had a commercial use first. And then the public gets to use it. But by that time, whatever the tool is being, the public gets to use it to its detriment. There's some exploitation involved now that we get our hands on it. It's not going to be free or beneficial. It's not for common use. That's why we have to pay for services here for internet, where in places like China you don't. Here's another example. Remember, government and corporations value stakeholders. The public is not a stakeholder. Okay? And so think about school funding. We know that public school teachers are underpaid and classrooms are overpacked, but the government can find money for vouchers to be spent at private schools. Or we can think of them as educational backed securities. We can purchase things in that nature, but it would be more advantageous just to invest in the schools and pay the teachers that you already have, but that's not the case. The government will give you money to spend with a private business that is part of a conglomerate on the New York Stock Exchange. Okay? And so, again, if the government system was equitable or it was godly, we wouldn't see things like this. Consider this. School teachers are underpaid, but the highest paid government employee at your state works at a school. The head football coach at name your state university is generally the highest paid state employee. Consider that your head football coach makes over 100 times what the school teacher at that very same school will make, or at the elementary school, is ridiculous, because $100 million state employee for the state school is ridiculous. He makes double what the president of the United States makes. And that's just a coach that's making $1 million a year. We have coaches making $3 and $4 million a year in state-funded salaries that are guaranteed, enough money to cover the shortfalls of every school district. The money to cover the shortfalls in any school district could more than be covered by the salary of the head football coach. But the state has multiple head football coaches that they are paying, some equally as well. If you consider places like Texas, football coaches probably make up, close to $1 billion in state liabilities when it comes to funding. The state easily spends $1 billion a year on football coach salaries. With your school teachers. It's like, oh, we need $4 million to cover raises for all the school teachers. And it's like, oh, we don't have money for that. All right, so that's just a couple of ways the economic system we know that this thing is wicked. And so now we know that resources should be managed. That's just common sense and basic stewardship. And scripture affirms this, okay? And so even in most of your hero tales, and even we see it loses in the Bible, is that a king was not originally born. Sometimes a king was a man who was able to show great skills in administration and things like that. He's the best person for the job. He is the best leader for the job, technically. And so he is chosen based on his merit. But generally, after the merit-based king is selected, who will be in charge of the system, or the government, or the economy, things of those natures, the well-being of the people, the succession of the king is not met by somebody whose merit is equal, but generally by a familiar succession. And so we have an establishment where it's like, hey, this guy's good at the job, but somehow we switch to, hey, now my son will take over after me. And thus we see the breakdown. And again, to the point now that the merchants have taken over. And so our political class has increasingly become the merchant class. Men trained not in justice or community, but in maximizing profits. And so their government mirrors that. That's why our current president talks the way he does, and he deals with countries the way he does. He's very transactional. You do for me, I do for you. If you don't do for me, then I'm not going to give to you. He's real simple. It's nothing but straight business. And people like that. And so it's not, and that's a good thing. It's a rational conclusion just based on observed behavior. You know what I'm saying? If you was to create a system, you want to create it in a way that answers your personal needs and concerns first before anyone else's. The merchant class is working no different. You would expect policy things that help big business and the flow of free trade and enterprise above, matters of social justice. Again, it's all about ROI when it comes to profits. Social justice causes, humanitarian causes don't make profits. And goods, services, social services, all the things that make a society function require money. Not because they have to require money, but that's because that's the way the world system is designed to keep you oppressed and enslaved to it. And so think about it like this. If we look in nature, it'll be odd to see a mother nursing another woman's child before their own. Again, this is something that if you saw in the animal kingdom, it'll be abnormal. Likewise, why would political leaders and any of the upper classes or oligarchy look out for the needs of someone else's children over their own? They wouldn't. We shouldn't be surprised when a senator or anyone like that takes a personal bribe or anything that would advance his own personal well-being and that of his families. After all, that's his number one responsibility. When the country acts like that or corporations act like that, we shouldn't be surprised. And if you're not a stakeholder whose interest is worthy of consideration when decisions are made, and you shouldn't be surprised if you're excluded from them. Okay, and so let's think. We can continue on with naming examples, and I do here in the book. But what we need to consider is: does the way I live, the way I work and vote and spend benefit my family's safety, reproduction, and stability? Remember, animals need to eat, reproduce, shelter, some form of safety. And it's like, is that what my work goes toward? Reproduction, safety, food, If not, why are we participating in it? Do you trust the government? Do you trust in the government of God? Okay, if the policies of the party don't, or if your party don't reflect your own, would you still support it? And would you choose your political party over your church? And finally, could you love a church member or friend or family member even though their political views are not the same as yours? All right. Again, there's a world system, and the Bible tells us that the ruler of the air is Satan, the ruler of this world. And we see that there's a system in place that dominates this world. We hear about it all the time. We hear about it on the television and the news, but no one can tell you what it is. But it's the whole world seems to dominate by. Evidence seems to suggest that the economic system of the world is a part of the enemy system, is a way that Satan rules the world. Live well. God bless.